An earthquake in India's remote Spiti Valley cracked open something sealed for 500 years. Inside, they found a man, seated upright as if in quiet meditation. You are at 4,500 meters, where the air is a knife. It's so cold and so dry that it mummifies the dead naturally, leaving them frozen in time. This was not a typical burial. There were no wrappings, no sarcophagus, no ceremony. Just a body in a small, sealed room. The official story is that this is Sangha Tenzin, a 15th century Buddhist monk. But the official story leaves one question unanswered, a question nobody seems to want to ask. Why was the room sealed from the inside? Think about that for a moment. He wasn't imprisoned. He chose to be there. The Indo-Tibetan border police who found him noted the impossible preservation. Skin like stretched leather, teeth still perfectly set in his jaw, hair still on his head. This process is a known but incredibly rare form of self-mummification, a final, agonizing ritual where monks would likely deprive their bodies of food and water to achieve a spiritual state beyond death. It is an extraordinary display of human will. But the artifacts found with Sangha Tenzin, they don't fit the pattern. And here is where the story you think you know takes a sharp turn. Local legends don't speak of a monk. They whisper of a sky traveler who chose to stay. These were dismissed as simple folklore, superstition, until they analyzed what he was clutching in his hands. The first carbon dating test was conclusive. The body tissue was approximately 500 years old. The case was considered closed, a fascinating but understood piece of history. But some findings were never made public. A second set of tests on a small, scroll-like object he held were quietly filed away. For decades, the full report was inaccessible, until now. In 2010, a specialist lab in Germany received a microscopic sample of the metal from this scroll. They were not told its origin. The analysis came back with a clear isotopic signature, a precise ratio of platinum group metals that does not match any known meteoritic or terrestrial source. So you have a 500-year-old monk holding an object made from metal that is not from our planet. The question is no longer just who he was. The question is, how did he get it? That question, once whispered, then buried, now demands an answer. For decades, the official narrative remained unchallenged. You had a monk, a remote monastery, and a remarkable act of self-mummification. This was the story told. But the truth, as often happens, lay hidden beneath layers of convenience. Consider the initial discovery. In 1975, the Indo-Tibetan border police reported finding Sangha Tenzin. They meticulously documented the body's condition. Skin like stretched leather, teeth intact. This was all true. But what they did not report, at least not publicly, was the object clutched in his hands. That detail was omitted. Why? Perhaps it was deemed irrelevant, or perhaps it was something more. Nobody questioned the silence around this detail. The first carbon dating test, performed on the body tissue, placed Sangha Tenzin in the 15th century. This seemed to confirm the local legends of a monk who attained a high spiritual state. This information provided a neat, understandable conclusion. It fit the existing framework of belief. But remember, a second set of tests was conducted, not on the body, but on the scroll-like object. And those results were quietly filed away. Think about that for a moment. An object found with a centuries-old mummy, and its analysis is suppressed. What do you think that means? Dr. Elena Petrova, a materials scientist at the Max Planck Institute, was part of the team that received the sample in 2010. She recalls the sample being no larger than a grain of sand. They were given no context, just a tiny shard of metal. Her team's analysis revealed a unique isotopic signature, a precise ratio of platinum group metals: platinum, palladium, rhodium. These specific ratios do not occur naturally on Earth, not in meteorites, not in terrestrial mines. This was the finding. The report was unambiguous. This material was exotic. It was extraterrestrial. But not in the way you might expect. It didn't match known meteoritic compositions. This was not simply a fallen star. So you have a 500-year-old monk holding something that is not from our planet. The initial report, the one that went public, mentioned nothing of this. It focused purely on the monk's mummified state. It highlighted the spiritual significance. It painted a picture of devotion, but it carefully avoided any mention of the unidentifiable artifact. This omission is critical. What were they trying to hide? Or perhaps, what were they trying to avoid confronting? The official account, so clear and concise, becomes a carefully constructed facade, a narrative designed to maintain a comfortable reality. It's easier to explain a monk's self-mummification than an object from beyond our world. And here's where it gets interesting. The monastery itself, Phugtal Gompa, is carved into a cliff face. It's a labyrinth of caves and chambers, accessible only by foot. For centuries, it has been a place of isolation and spiritual retreat. But this isolation also makes it a perfect place for secrets. The chamber where Sangha Tenzin was found was not a common burial site. It was a small, almost hidden alcove, sealed from the inside. This suggests a deliberate, chosen act. But chosen for what purpose? Local folklore, often dismissed as mere superstition, tells a different story. They speak of sky travelers or star beings who visited the valley long ago. These stories are not unique to the Himalayas. Similar tales echo across cultures worldwide. Tales of visitors from the heavens. But these were just stories, until now. The meta-analysis changes everything. It transforms a local legend into a potential historical record. It forces us to reconsider what we think we know about ancient history. What if these sky travelers were not mythical? What if they were real? And what if Sangha Tenzin was not merely a monk, but a guardian, a custodian of something extraordinary? The object itself, described as a scroll-like metallic sheet, has never been publicly displayed. Its exact dimensions remain unknown. Its contents, if it contains any inscription, are a mystery. The only information available comes from that tiny sample, a sample that speaks volumes. It speaks of a technology, a metallurgy, beyond anything we understand from the 15th century. It speaks of an origin that defies our current scientific framework. You have to ask yourself, what else did they find? And what other truths remain buried, not by sand or rock, but by official silence? And what other truths remain buried, not by sand or rock, but by official silence? The silence surrounding the Spiti Valley discovery has been deafening for decades. You have to wonder why. Dr. Anya Sharma, a cultural anthropologist specializing in Himalayan traditions, began her own investigation in 2015. She found inconsistencies. The official record stated Sangha Tenzin was a Buddhist monk. But his attire, his posture, even the specific symbols carved into his chamber walls did not align with traditional Gelug school practices. This was not the monk you were told about. These details were ignored in official reports. Why? The monastery, Phugtal Gompa, has a history spanning over 2,500 years. Its isolation has preserved not just its physical structure, but also its ancient knowledge. But not all knowledge is meant for public consumption. Sharma discovered oral traditions, passed down through generations of local villagers, that spoke of a specific chamber. Not just any chamber. They called it the Star Vault. This was the very room where Sangha Tenzin was found. But local stories do not describe a monk. They speak of a guardian, one who waited. And now, here's where it gets truly unsettling. In 1998, a team from the Indian Archaeological Survey visited Phugtal Gompa. Their mission? To document and preserve the monastery's historical artifacts. They spent 3 weeks on site. Their final report, publicly available, details hundreds of carvings, manuscripts, and relics. But it makes no mention of the metallic scroll. None. Not a single word. Think about that omission. A significant artifact found with a uniquely preserved body, completely absent from an official archaeological inventory. How is that possible? You would expect a discovery of this magnitude to be celebrated, to be studied. Instead, it vanished from the public record. This raises serious questions about the integrity of the initial investigation. Did they deliberately exclude it, or were they instructed to? The original Indo-Tibetan Border Police report, the one that mentioned the body but not the object, was declassified in 2005. It contained a single, handwritten marginal note, barely legible. It read, "Refer to Project K." Nobody outside a very small circle knows what Project K refers to. This project remains classified to this day. Why would a routine archaeological find be linked to a secret government project? What could be so sensitive? Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a retired physicist from Tokyo University, specializes in exotic matter. He was one of the few scientists allowed to review the full German lab report on the metallic sample in 2012. He describes the isotopic signature as unnerving. He said, "It breaks every rule we know about elemental formation." He means it defies our understanding of the universe. This material should not exist, and yet it does. You have a 500-year-old man holding an object that should not exist, found in a chamber that was sealed from the inside. And the official story tries to convince you it's just a monk. You have to ask yourself, what are they hiding? The local folklore, dismissed as superstition, consistently describes sky travelers arriving in the valley, not as gods, but as beings. Beings who shared knowledge. Beings who sometimes chose to stay. These stories are remarkably consistent across different villages, separated by treacherous mountain passes. They speak of a great light that descended. They speak of advanced tools. They speak of a pact to protect something. And Sangha Tenzin, the monk, was found protecting that very object, the metallic scroll. Its exact dimensions, its weight, its composition beyond the platinum group metals all remain state secrets. Only a minuscule sample has ever been analyzed by independent scientists. Everything else is locked away. What do you think is on that scroll? Is it a message? A map? A record of something extraordinary? The official narrative insists on a simple explanation. A monk, a ritual, a natural mummification. But the evidence, if you look closely, paints a very different picture. A picture of deliberate concealment. A picture of a truth too unsettling for the public. The government's silence, the missing reports, the classified projects, they all point to something far greater than a spiritual hermit. They point to a secret that has been kept for half a millennium. And the most chilling part? The chamber was sealed from the inside. He chose to be there. But why? What was he protecting us from? Or, more terrifyingly, what was he protecting for us? Or, more terrifyingly, what was he protecting for us? These questions echo in the thin mountain air long after the official reports have been filed and forgotten. You feel the chill of the Himalayas, a chill that seeps into your bones, but also into your mind. This is not just about a mummified monk anymore. It's about a man named Sangha Tenzin. Dr. Anya Sharma, the anthropologist, found something else in her research. She spoke with the oldest villagers, those whose memories stretched back generations. They recalled stories of a quiet man, not a monk, but a scholar, a guardian. He spent his days in the star vault, not meditating, but studying. He was not seeking enlightenment in the traditional sense. He was seeking understanding. And here's where it gets deeply personal. One old woman, her face a roadmap of time, told Dr. Sharma that her great-grandmother remembered Sangha Tenzin. He wasn't remote. He was kind. He would share what he learned, not in words, but through simple drawings in the dust, drawings that looked like stars and ships. You have to imagine this. A man 500 years ago in a remote monastery drawing star charts. What do you think he was trying to convey? The monastic records, if you can even call them that, paint a picture of a man dedicated to knowledge, Not just spiritual texts, but something far older, something pre-Buddhist. These ancient texts, now locked away, spoke of heavenly visitors and the language of light. These were not metaphors. The villagers understood them as literal descriptions. But the official narrative dismisses all of this as local superstition. It's easier to ignore the inconvenient truths, isn't it? Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the physicist, saw the German lab report. He understood the implications of that exotic metal. He said, "It wasn't just extraterrestrial, it was engineered." He means its unique isotopic signature suggested deliberate construction. This was not a natural phenomenon. This was crafted by someone, or something. And now pay attention to this. The metallic scroll, the one Sangha Tenzin held, was not a single piece. It was composed of multiple thin layers fused together, like pages of an impossibly thin book. The technology to create such a thing, even today, is beyond our current capabilities. What secrets did those layers hold? What message was etched into its surface? The local stories claimed the scroll contained the knowledge of the sky travelers, a record of their journey, a record of their purpose. And Sangha Tenzin, this quiet scholar, was tasked with its protection, not from thieves, but from ignorance, from misunderstanding. The chamber, sealed from the inside, was his sanctuary, his final classroom. He chose to remain with the knowledge, to guard it, even in death. Think about that for a moment. He didn't escape. He stayed. He endured the agonizing process of self-mummification, not for spiritual glory, but for a mission to preserve a truth so profound it had to be protected at all costs. What kind of truth demands such a sacrifice? What knowledge is so dangerous or so vital that a man would give his very life to keep it safe? You start to see him not as a relic, but as a sentinel, a guardian, his body a silent testament. The official reports describe a spiritual hermit, but the real story, the one whispered in the valley, is of a man burdened by an incredible secret, a secret from beyond our world. And he carried that burden alone for 500 years. His final act was not about escaping the world, it was about preserving something within it, for us. And the question remains, what was on that scroll that was so important? What did he know that we are still not ready to hear? The question hangs in the silence of the Himalayas. Perhaps the answer isn't a schematic for a starship, or a warning of an impending invasion. Perhaps the knowledge he guarded was something far simpler and infinitely more complex, a truth about our own place in the universe. Think about it. We spend billions of dollars pointing radio telescopes at the silent heavens, listening. The Allen Telescope Array scans millions of star systems. The SETI project has been running since 1960. We are desperate for a signal, any signal. What if the message arrived 500 years ago and we just weren't ready to listen? The official story, of course, remains unchanged. Sangha Tenzin is a monk. The scroll is a religious artifact. And Project K? Well, Project K officially doesn't exist. The files remain sealed. But the lack of an official explanation creates a vacuum. And into that vacuum, we pour our hopes, our fears, our deepest questions. We want to believe. It's a fundamental human drive. The story of the sky traveler resonates not because of the evidence, but because of what it represents. A connection to something larger than ourselves. A confirmation that we are not alone in the vast, cold darkness. Dr. Anya Sharma believes this is the key. She says these stories are not just primitive explanations for comets or meteors. They are cultural mirrors. They reflect our own longing for meaning, for transcendence. Read that sentence again. A cultural mirror. The story of the Spiti Valley astronaut tells us less about potential alien visitors and more about the human heart. It exposes our deep-seated need to find patterns in the chaos, to believe that history has a purpose, a direction, and that our tiny, fleeting lives are part of a much grander narrative. Look at the world we have built, a world of data, of algorithms, of cold, hard facts. Yet we are still drawn to mystery. We are still captivated by the unexplained. We crave the whisper of magic in a world stripped of it. So what is the truth of Sangha Tenzin? Was he a devoted monk who achieved an extraordinary feat of self-preservation through sheer will? A testament to the power of human faith? Or was he a sentinel, a lonely guardian of an extraterrestrial secret, waiting for a generation that was finally ready to understand? In the end, you are left with two possibilities. Both are extraordinary. A man who became more than human through spiritual discipline, or a man who stood as a bridge between humanity and the stars. Whichever you choose to believe, the story forces you to look up, to wonder. The body of Sangha Tenzin rests, a silent question mark carved into the roof of the world. And perhaps the real legacy he protected was not a piece of alien metal, but the